Welcome back to the second segment of the Glazov Gang. Very special episode with our very special guest, Jeremy Boring. Welcome back.
Glad to be here.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how excited are you to finally be a member of this gang?
10's as high as it goes?
Yes.
I'm not sure that your scale properly contains my enthusiasm.
Right, because you would, if it was 11, 12, right?
Yeah, well, 12's pushing it.
And, and you're being truthful, right, Jeremy?
Almost never. No.
Oh, boy. Jeremy, back to truthrevolt.org.
Yes.
And you being a filmmaker, we're going to get into your movie, The Arroyo. What fascinates me about a lot of your work, and you being a filmmaker, yet fighting political war, as we know, it all interweaves, it all intersects. Let's start again a little bit with your theme of the importance of storytelling.
Yeah. Well, storytelling is the language of human beings. When the first caveman painted on the first wall, that's communicating the value set of what it means to be a person. People think, when I was growing up, I thought maybe what separates man from the beasts is that we can reason. But animals can use tools. There's orca down in Antarctica who've learned how to create waves to wash the sea lions off of the ice shelf so that they can get them. They actually teach that to their young. And obviously, it's not that we have emotions. If you have a puppy dog, you know that they love you and have emotions, and they feel loyalty, and they feel sadness on some level. It's our ability to tell stories. That's what makes us uniquely human. And I think you mentioned in the last segment, and maybe I didn't respond to it, that I have said in the past that conservatives make a mistake when they say, Barack Obama doesn't sound like an American. He doesn't sound American. And what we mean is, when he speaks about the founding fathers, he doesn't do it with any sense of reverence. Or when he quotes the Constitution, it's always to somehow subtly subvert its actual meaning. Like in his second State of the Union, the We the People speech, right? We the people. But he's not we the people, he's the president. The Constitution separates power between we the people and they the government. So for him to try to embody being we the people is to make it seem as though the government is us, which is the lie of collectivism. So we hear that and we say he doesn't sound very American, but in fact we're wrong. It's Mitt Romney who doesn't sound very American. It's conservatives by and large who don't sound very American, because we don't communicate in the language of the American people. The American people don't sit around and quote the founding fathers, and they don't sit around and pontificate about the Constitution, nor should they. They're busy living their lives and communicating the way people have always communicated, which is through story. Story's how we understand.
And Obama understands this very well.
He absolutely understands this. He understands at the end of the day, as David Horowitz has so wonderfully pointed out, right, that the right speaks in terms of policies and the left speaks in terms of story. This is my interpretation of David's core argument. When Mitt Romney says of Barack Obama in 2012, he's a good man and a good father, and I think he loves this country, but he's not a very effective president. He's not a very effective administrator. What does the left say about Mitt Romney? It says that he's a greedy 1%er, a warmonger, that he has binders full of women, that he straps dogs to the hood of his car, that he literally fires a man just so that his wife will later die of cancer. Yeah. They're telling a story. They're speaking on an emotional, human level. They're painting a picture of a man, not a picture of an ideology, not a picture of a policy set. The right has think tanks that write policy papers, and the left has Hollywood. Yeah. And that's the fundamental difference.
And this is interconnected with Romney in that third foreign policy debate, I think it was the third one with Obama, where he did not confront Obama on Benghazi and really take it to him.
That's right.
He's trying to be nice. Conservatives want to be nice.
Right.
And maybe if we don't call you names, you won't call us names.
Yeah, they want to play by the rules. And the left has no allegiance to the rules. This is why the left is always for decriminalization. The left is always for the rights of criminals, right? The Attorney General of the United States just said that felons should all have the right to vote. And that, in fact, if we don't allow lawbreakers to have a voice in creating law, we can only expect them to break even more laws in the future. Why is it that the left always sides with people who break the rules? Because fundamentally, the left doesn't have a regard for law and order. Rules for the left are just a tool for constraining the right. That's all they are. So yeah, I think that Governor Romney is a good man and an ethical man, and I don't think that he appreciated the fact that when he doesn't tell a story about himself and about Barack Obama, because all stories are about opposition to something. You know, when the right does tell a story, we want to tell the story of, you know, Mitt Romney was the son of a great father and a great mother. From a young age, he learned the values of baseball and apple pie and pray at night. Prequels suck, and biopics suck. That's not a story. A story is about opposition to something. You know, the greatest conservative story ever told is actually so powerful that it has a name, and the name is The Hero's Journey. And it's the most prolific story in Western literature. In its classic form, it's King Arthur. In its probably most expansive form, it's Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings. In its more modern form, it's Harry Potter. But in its sort of uniquely American form, it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
And how does Star Wars open? It doesn't open by teaching us about a young farm boy on dusty Tatooine, learning values from his uncle and values from his aunt, learning hard work and responsibility and apple pie and baseball. No, it opens with a tiny little ship flying through space, being pursued by the all-powerful state. And then we see little men lining up with their little guns, waiting for sure death. The door explodes, and in walk stormtroopers and a 7-foot-tall man in a death mask who kills them, chokes them, kills the innocent, destroys a planet. It's against that backdrop that we come to understand the value of the fight that Luke Skywalker finds himself in. I mean, if Luke Skywalker, if Ben Kenobi had said to Luke Skywalker in Star Wars that, you know, Darth Vader's a good man and a good father, but he's not a very effective administrator of the Galactic Empire, then we might not support Luke Skywalker when he takes such drastic actions as destroying the apparatus of the government, which is the Death Star in that movie. We would have seen that as reactionary and draconian and overreacting and the party of no Death Star. But instead we support him when he destroys the apparatus of state because the story is opposition. The left understands that. They paint a picture of an evil Mitt Romney to run against. The right doesn't understand it. We say, and frankly, we don't even have the stones, if you'll excuse me for saying so, to even talk about bringing down the apparatus of state anymore. Mitt Romney's message, to the extent he had one, God bless him, but his message was a promise to bring the Death Star in on time and on budget.
Yeah.
We have no story to tell, and as a result, we have no boldness.
And thank you so much, Jeremy. And to sum up briefly in terms of that debate, would you agree with me that if Romney, and I can't even imagine him saying this, but if Romney would have said, Mr. President, your hands are drenched in the blood of those Americans that died in Benghazi, and you are responsible and you are complicit in their deaths. Now, where were you during the hours that that was happening? There's a reluctance to speak like that.
Absolutely.
You've explained why. Would you agree that it would be more effective if he had done that?
I would, although the third debate wasn't the time to do it. Right, the time to do it was the entire time
right, no,
leading
absolutely.
up.
You're not just going to
That's
pop
right.
up.
We painted no story about President Obama during the course of that election. We still don't.
Yeah.
We still don't.
And this is where Revoltorg comes in, is that the story is going to start being told and the left is going to be held more accountable.
That's absolutely right.
Jeremy, let's move on to the Arroyo. I watched it the other night. Fascinating, fantastic film on many levels. One thing that actually also struck me while I was watching it, even just some of the conservative dialogue, my jaw dropped open because every film I watch, Catholic priest is being demonized and the CIA, et cetera, and there's exchanges in that film with conservative themes, et cetera. So this is what you're doing. You're entering whether it be traditional values or arguments about the border, etc. But tell us a bit about the Arroyo, what made you put it together and what it's about.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things that we tried to do in the Arroyo is not have it be an evangelical film for our philosophy. And one of the ways that we tried to accomplish that was by not having the lead character be the character that expresses our most deeply held values. It's actually the bad guy in the movie who expresses our position. You know, he's the one that actually articulates in the most clear language the problem of the border and the problem of the American response to the border.
Let me interrupt for a second. What I really appreciated is that bad guy. He said the Americans aren't going to protect their border. Do you know why? Because it would be in their interest. And I just sat up and I was like, wow, you've got the bad guy talking about the self-destructiveness. And he said, look at all the American movies. They're the bad guys in their own movies.
Yeah.
But it was just a relief to actually hear the truth in some of the dialogue.
Well, thank you. So the movie was inspired by a documentary by our mutual friend Chris Burgard, whose movie Border, you know, Chris embedded himself with the Minutemen for 6 or 8 months in 2007, and that movie really inspired me because it was the first time that I'd really realized the scope of the human tragedy playing out on our southern border. I mean, the fact that the world's largest drug-running operation and human trafficking operation is happening on the back door of the freest, most prosperous nation on earth it's just beyond a travesty. It's a mockery of everything that we claim to hold dear. You know, our movie doesn't say what needs to be done about that. It's not advocating a policy position, but what our movie seeks to say is there is huge suffering on all sides of this issue. 30,000 Mexican civilians killed in the last few years by the drug cartels on their side of the border. Huge parts of Arizona where there's signs put up by the American government that say American citizens can't travel here because of the armed drug cartels. Ranchers having their livelihoods and their lifestyles completely destroyed. Obviously the drugs and crime that permeates all throughout the country as a result, and an amazing plurality of people from all ethnicities and all political parties and all nations involved know that something has to be done about this border, and the only two groups of people who don't want to do anything about it are the drug cartels and the federal government. And so that's what our movie is about. It's about it tries to put a human face through fiction, through storytelling, as opposed to Chris's documentary, on the scope of that tragedy and the absolute failure of our government to deal honestly with the American people about what we all know is happening on our southern border.
And very powerfully done. Let's show the trailer.
You ever been to Mexico? Looks just like this. Same land, same sky. Everybody wants to be here. You ever wonder about that?
Over 1,500 in the last 6 weeks. That's just on my land, and that's just the ones I've counted. And we ain't got no problems at all to hear the politician tell it.
I get it. Times are hard in our community. We all want a magical cure to our problems.
Found another dead kid on my land. Third one this year.
Coyotes do pretty much as they please.
Did you hear about that mess up in Phoenix? A whole family slaughtered by the cartels.
What am I supposed to do, Ed? It's not my job to enforce federal law.
Then whose job is it?
Hell, ain't nobody gonna help us down here. Not Uncle Sam, nobody. We ain't nothing but a nuisance to them. Except when it comes time to write the check.
Maybe it's time we helped ourselves.
If you hurt my family, you should have told that boy to shoot me on sight.
Hello! Hello!
Don't run away. I was trying to avoid the OK Corral.
Well, you didn't.
Wow, absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on your very successful and powerful film, Jeremy.
Thank you very much. You know,
How can people get it?
well, it's doing fairly well. We opened in a theater in Texas, and because of the response, the movie's been held over 5 times by that theater in Lubbock, Texas, Premier Cinemas, and now they're going to move it into 5 or 6 more cities in Texas over the coming weeks.
Let me interrupt for a minute. When you say held over, you mean it was supposed to go, but it's so popular
that it stayed.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we've the community there in Lubbock, Texas, where the movie's been playing, has been tremendously supportive. And as I say, now the movie's going to try its luck in a few more markets. We've made a great deal with Chris Ruddy over at Newsmax. They've been very generous, and they're going to help us try to sell the DVD when it comes out. And iTunes has accepted the film, so hopefully in about 6 weeks it'll be available through iTunes for nationwide VOD. And our hope is just that as many people as possible are able to see the movie for two reasons. One, hopefully to challenge our own side to be more engaged in the culture. You know, to say, look, this is it's not the perfect movie, but it's a evidence that we can in fact make movies on our side of the aisle. And then also to challenge people about the situation on the border and to really shine a light on the suffering that's happening there.
Jeremy, Kenny Maines did a fantastic job as Jim Weatherford, main protagonist, and of course the other actors, fantastic. You were the director.
Yeah.
Now, did you fight the instinct to also maybe act in the movie, or
no?
Can you direct but also act in it? Or
one could. Can I? You know, it's funny. We were looking through pictures from the set as we were getting ready to release the movie when it had its premiere, and I found all these pictures where I'm wearing a sheriff's uniform, and I couldn't for the life of me remember ever having put on a sheriff's uniform during the course of the shooting, and Jonathan Hay, our producer, reminded me, oh yeah, you were actually going to be in a scene that day, and you just never remembered to put yourself in it.
Are you serious?
So, yeah, it's not a priority. It was not a priority.
Wait
to
a
me
minute,
at all.
you actually had yourself playing a scene and you forgot?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just going to sneak myself into a scene.
As a sheriff?
Yeah.
But overall,
I don't
would
have
you
that
play
problem.
a good guy or a bad guy if you were going to star in one of your own movies?
Just
in
a
the future?
handsome, just an all-around handsome guy. That's what I'd be.
We are running out of time, Jeremy.
Oh.
Before we conclude on truthrevolt.org, I just want to ask you,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background? Why are you not a leftist? Why aren't you a liberal? What's your background? Was there somebody that influenced you? Was it a book that you read? Share that with us.
Well, you know, as you said, I didn't approach my early life through any sort of a political lens. I just lived my life. I won the parent lottery, you know, and had wonderful parents and a wonderful family. Grew up in a wonderful part of the country.
What country is that? What part
A
of the
very
country?
small town called Slayton, Texas, on the Llano Estacado. It's
So you're a Texan.
I'm a Texan.
Okay.
And so a lot of these values, I guess, I just took for granted until I moved to LA. It wasn't until I got here that I found out I was a warmonger and a racist and a homophobe and a sexist and greedy. You know, I didn't know that I was any of those things. I certainly never had been taught to be racist or taught to be homophobic or taught to be greedy. So in some ways I came to LA without politics until I started being called names for my values. And as anybody who gets bullied, you respond to that by, you know, you can either fight or flight instinct kicks in. I didn't run from it. And I decided if I'm going to stand up for what I believe, I better know what I believe. And I did a lot of soul searching when I first moved to LA. 9/11 happened not long after I got here, and like so many people, it really focused my thinking. I also had the great privilege of growing up around people whose understanding of the gospel is very centered on freedom. You know, the Bible says it's for freedom that Christ has made us free, but not that we would indulge sin. And I spent a lot of my early time in LA contemplating that concept and what it means, and does it have ramifications for people politically. But I would also add to this that my first political thoughts came in response to watching the movie Braveheart. And I think that that's why I'm an advocate for conservatives engaging in culture, because I think the greatest movie ever made about America doesn't have any tri-cornered hats in it, and it doesn't have any muskets in it. It takes place in Scotland in the 1300s. It's the power of fiction to communicate capital T truth. It's not lowercase t truth, it's capital T truth. And watching Mel Gibson stand up for human freedom, again, first political thought I ever had, and deeply influenced me. And I think many of us, probably in ways that we're conscious of and in ways that we're not conscious of, have been so influenced by movies and culture. And that's why conservatives cannot cede that battlefield.
Very powerful, Jeremy. Thank you very much. Truthrevolt.org. truthrevolt.org.
Come sign up.
How can people get involved if they want to
Yeah.
and fight this culture and political war with you guys?
Well, we need all the help that we can get. It's a long war, and it requires the activism of the American people. It requires people standing up for what they believe. So, as I've mentioned, we're starting this new membership initiative. Our hope is that we can add to our 1,000 activists and grow that. We'd love for it to be 10,000 activists.
So people
by the
can
end of the
become an
year.
activist.
They can become an activist.
Okay, go to truthrevolt.org.
That's right.
And click on.
Look, just sign up for the membership,
Okay.
sign up for the action alerts. And listen, I'm a big advocate for people being free to do whatever they want. I know that people work all day, they raise their kids, they don't have time to engage in the political battle maybe on the level that you do or the level that I do. For some people, it's that 3 minutes every day where they can make calls or send emails for us. For other people, maybe it's just sharing one of our stories on Facebook. And for other people, maybe it's just having the sense to educate yourself about the things that are going on, and we hope that our articles can help be of service to that. My view is that if everyone would just take whatever step is in front of them, just that would be enough. So whatever support we get from anybody, we're grateful for, and I think plays a meaningful role.
Jeremy, it was an honor to speak with you and to have you on the Glazov
What
gang.
a thrill for me to be on the show.
Thank you very much for being such a brave and noble warrior and knight in telling the truth and fighting against the totalitarianism and the threat to our civilization. Thank you.
No, man, thank you very much.
Thank you. Truthrevolt.org. Go to that site and become an activist and a freedom fighter, and we'll see you next week. Good night.